Well, hello again. This is Dr. Michael Bogart of Aspect Ministries, where we're all about promoting effective 21st century faith. So if you saw my previous introductory videos about the Chosen series, you'll recall that I explained some basic features which pop up throughout the episodes. So far, we've looked at what it means to be a Jew and the intimate connection between what Christians call the Old Testament and the New Testament portions of the Bible. In this video, I want to explore what is meant for Jews to keep the Sabbath. In the Gospels, as well as in the Chosen episodes, Jesus and his disciples were very concerned with Sabbath keeping. And lots of people today, of course, get the concept, but for those who may not be familiar with the Bible or with contemporary Judeo-Christian practices, the idea of a holy day once a week may seem just a bit strange. So let's talk about it. Before we do, let me quickly restate what I see as the problem in viewing the Chosen series. Now, I'm extremely impressed with what Dallas Jenkins and the crew have done so far in the series. So the problem is not the Chosen itself. It's just that fully 20 centuries have come and gone since Jesus' times. And there are many layers of culture, history, and language that now separate us from those events. In this third decade of the 21st century, even fairly knowledgeable people sometimes struggle with understanding the customs and historical setting of the gospel accounts. Hence the need to explain some things that the Chosen either assumes that most people understand or attempts to explain on the fly in the midst of the unfolding story. So, what is this thing called the Sabbath and why is it so important? If you've been watching The Chosen, you'll agree that in practically every episode, thus far at least, the issue of keeping the Sabbath is an important theme. The reason is that it's because it figures into the gospel accounts themselves. And by the way, the characters in the series don't say Sabbath, they say Shabbat, which is the actual Hebrew name for the day. We say Sabbath, but Sabbath and Shabbat are interchangeable terms. Even today, Shabbat is central to life and practice for observant Jews. I've stayed in hotels in Israel several times, and most of these hotels have good-sized dining rooms for the guests. On Shabbat, it's touching to hear families of observant Jews singing Shabbat songs and reciting prayers at the next table or across the room. In Jewish homes around the world, the mother of the house usually does a brief ceremony of candle lighting before the evening meal on Friday to welcome Shabbat. In Jewish neighborhoods, shops close, chores are completed, and families gather as Friday evening approaches. I love the scene in The Chosen, Season 1, Episode 2, when Mary Magdalene, having returned to her childhood faith after Jesus redeemed her, hosts her first Shabbat and invites others who have not observed it for some time. Here's the clip.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine.
You have lovingly and willingly given us your Shabbat as an inheritance in memory of creation.
So it is a big deal for Jews, whether today or in the first century. But what exactly is Shabbat? Well, it's the seventh and final day of the weekly cycle. Jews figure Shabbat as starting with sundown on Friday evening and ending at sundown on Saturday. Why is Shabbat important? Well, you've probably heard of the 10 Commandments. The fourth commandment says this: remember the Sabbath day, or Shabbat, by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the seventh day, the Sabbath, and made it holy. Well, that's pretty straightforward. Don't do any work on Shabbat, right? But there's an obvious question. What counts as work? Some things are no-brainers. Anything you do on a daily basis to make a living or to maintain a household is work. For example, if a man's a farmer, then doing normal farm work on the Sabbath is forbidden. If a person is a merchant, he or she cannot make or sell their wares on the Sabbath. If a woman is a housekeeper, she may not do those normal tasks on the Sabbath that she would do on any other day of the week. Fair enough. That's about as far as the Bible goes in explaining what counts as work on the Sabbath. Some Jews in ancient times, though, wanted more specific instructions, arguing that technically anything that takes effort is work. So that would include picking up and carrying objects, walking a distance, and many other kinds of activities that we take for granted in daily life. Now, since the Bible is not specific about every possible form of work, it was left up to the leadership of the Jewish people to decide these things over the centuries. These leaders were called rabbis, and they debated back and forth about what counts as work by posing all sorts of scenarios and hypothetical situations. Here's an easy example. Sabbath or not, people have to eat, right? So can you cook food on the Sabbath? Well, clearly, since cooking ends up being work for somebody, it was decided many centuries ago that cooking was off limits. So what to do? The answer is that all food to be eaten on the Sabbath must be cooked and set out on Friday before the Sabbath begins. Here are some other situations. Can you pick up your child on the Sabbath? Lifting a child obviously requires physical effort. Can you draw water from a well on the Sabbath? If the water that you had stored up or saved somehow for the Sabbath was used or spilled. What about if your farm animal, like a cow or donkey or sheep, is sick or injured or otherwise in distress on the Sabbath? Can you help them? I mean, they don't know anything about the Sabbath. All they know is they're hurting. All of those kinds of things were discussed and debated by rabbis over many centuries. These debates and decisions were recorded in a large volume of books called the Talmud, which is still used by Jews today to regulate life. Now, these sorts of Sabbath issues pop up in quite a few episodes of The Chosen. For example, in several episodes, Jesus gets in trouble for violating the Sabbath by healing people. The rabbis' thinking in forbidding healing on Shabbat is that healing involves constructive activity, and therefore it's not permitted on this day, which is set aside for rest. Jesus' response to being reprimanded for healing on the Sabbath is simply to ask, which is better on Shabbat, to save life or harm it? Another example occurs in episode 6, when Jesus and his disciples are so hungry that they pick the heads off wheat growing in a nearby field and eat that grain. In the episode, some religious leaders see them doing that and charge Jesus with violating the Sabbath because it takes work to harvest grain. Another example occurs in the early episodes of season 1 as Simon and Andrew are in desperate need for income. To try to generate income, they resort to fishing on the Sabbath, and they end up in trouble with the Jewish leaders for Sabbath violation and with the Romans for failure to pay taxes on the income. Now, all of this may sound petty and legalistic to contemporary viewers. So why did God command that his people refrain from work on the Sabbath? And what did he mean by insisting that the Sabbath should be kept holy? People today disagree about these questions, but let me give you my take. First, Sabbath was meant to provide a regular day of rest, a mandatory day off, so to speak, a day to just relax and renew. If anything, people in the 21st century need that more than ever before. And the temptation for many people today is to work as much as possible and to feel as though taking one day off in 7 is to miss opportunities and income. Hence, we don't get the rest that we were designed to need and enjoy. Then the Sabbath was meant to be a day for reflection and reverence for God. It was to be a day for putting the week, the month, the year, a lifetime into perspective. That perspective is gained by realizing that our trust ultimately is in God and his provision, and not in ourselves and what we can produce. God promised his people that if they would trust him and rest on the Sabbath, he would bless them with more than enough on the other 6 days. Finally, the Sabbath is to be kept holy because according to Genesis 1, God rested from his creative work after 6 days of activity. Have you ever wondered why we even have a 7-day week? I mean, why not a 5-day week or a 12-day week? The way we actually organize our time, even in this skeptical, cynical 21st century, is still based on God's pattern, a 7-day cycle in which activity and rest are perfectly balanced. The 7-day week is a unity in which there can be completion, activity, production, rest, renewal. The Sabbath is meant to teach us to trust God and to remind us that God is not working against us. He's committed to our welfare, and He knows what that means better than we do. So was Jesus anti-Sabbath in breaking these rules that the rabbis had set up? Not at all. Jesus' point was that the religious leaders of His day had taken something that God intended as a blessing for us and made it into something so rigid and restricting that it ended up hurting people rather than helping them. What about us? Do we still have a sacred day of the week? Jews still keep Friday sundown to Saturday sundown as Shabbat. The earliest Christians, of course, were all of Jewish background, so they kept Shabbat as well. But from the beginning of the Christian faith, followers of Jesus seem to have also worshipped on Sunday to mark the day that Jesus rose from the dead. And over time, most Christians moved away from Shabbat and focused almost exclusively on Sunday worship. For many Christians today, Sunday has, in effect, become Shabbat. All right, in the next background video, I want to do something that few people know about, and I want to describe the difference between the written law, the Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and the oral law that rabbis and oftentimes Jewish people go by today. We're going to see what makes that so important and how it figures into the chosen. In the meantime, you might want to look at some of my 5-minute Bible guides on YouTube, in which I give simple but impactful chunks of information about the Bible and related topics. You might also want to take a moment to visit my website, aspectministries.com, and the undiscoveredbible.com website, in which you'll find a whole bunch of helpful, insightful, and thought-provoking articles, media, and more. I hope my insights in this episode have been helpful and have deepened your appreciation and enjoyment of the chosen. Till next time, this is Dr. Michael Bogart with Aspect Ministries. See you next time.